London is an extremely expansive city, and a city that has been referred to as one of the world's most influential communities for centuries. However, while you may know the major London landmarks like Big Ben, the Tower of London, and Buckingham Palace, many don't know the extremely dark history that lurks beneath the city's shiny facade. The Great Plague of London was one of the city's darkest moments. From 1665 to 1666, the bubonic plague, an extremely infectious and deadly disease, spread rampant throughout the city, and in little more than 1 year had killed off almost a quarter of London's total population, an estimated 100,000 people to be exact. But in places like London, where there really weren't large plots of open land to bury all of these bodies, and people were in a rush to put these infectious corpses into the ground, where were the victims of the bubonic plague buried? Surprisingly, there are many mass graves within the London city limits that bear no historical designation, no proper regulation, and are almost invisible to the naked eye. On our journey to find the truth behind the dark plague history of London, we first set out to find the lost locations of a few of these notorious plague pits in the heart of the city. And there goes the train right there, right when we got to the station. We were rushing to get here and we just missed it.
It's when?
Okay.
How long does it take?
15:06 until it gets here.
What time is it?
14:43.
Oh.
We're gonna be late.
So right now we're standing in Westminster here in London. It's a beautiful part of the city, a lot of historical buildings and landmarks in this area. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are a number of plague burial pits here in London, and they're commonly referred to as plague pits. This is where a number of people, a lot obviously undocumented, names lost to history, were thrown into mass pits and given either improper burials or sometimes consecrated burials, but it kind of depends on the area that you're at. So this little garden behind us, this is called Christ Church Garden, is a public garden. You can come in here, you can walk around. There's a guy walking his dog in here. It's a public area. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are hundreds of bodies buried right here in the dirt. It's actually pretty crazy when you read about it online, just how many people are buried here. It was established first in 1640 as an overflow cemetery for a nearby church, St. Mary's, and in 1665 it was actually designated as one of these plague pits here in London during the time that the bubonic plague was coming into town and, eviscerating a large chunk of the population. It's always interesting to me just how some of these places are forgotten by time. People walk by every day but probably don't know how many bodies are buried right here in this seemingly, innocent field. The only marker that we could actually see around here that designates this as a cemetery is this little thing right here, made in 2012, which just simply says in memory of victims of violence, Justice for Victims 2012. It doesn't even say that someone's buried here. It doesn't say that this is a cemetery when in reality, there are a ton of skeletons right here. People picnic here unknowingly, and as you can see by the footage, there's a whole colony of pigeons that spend the day foraging for bread. And are saluting their now pigeon king.
King of the pigeons!
So yeah, very interesting history, just wanted to point that out. Oh! It's like they're a conscious...
someone's feeding them.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, just wanted to point this out. We're going to be visiting a number of different sites associated with the Great Plague. This is not to be confused with the earlier Black Death, which was the first period of plague infestation and death here in England. The first one being much more damaging to the population. It killed millions, and it's just insane. I think the first plague, didn't it wipe out like 50% of the population?
No, more than that.
That was 2/3, right?
It was 1 in every 3
Yeah,
died.
so it would have been...
So 1/3 of the entire population of Europe. That's not just UK.
Yeah.
Entire Europe. 1/3 of the entire European population.
But in London, I think it was higher, just because of how dense it was. I think it was 2/3. I'll look up a number for the video. But
in dense cities, people were dying every day, as well with the Black Plague. Most cases, it only took a maximum of 3 days to kill someone from the moment you contracted it.
yeah,
So once you contracted, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of struggles with families because they didn't know whether or not they should be with their family or if they should run and hide and leave them to die a horrible and painful death on their own.
yeah, it's very sad. Which is going to culminate in us visiting one of these infamous pest houses, but we'll get on with that later. Just wanted to show this little cemetery garden.
And if you saw, I was trying to contract the Black Plague myself just now with all those pigeons, but it failed, unfortunately.
Oh man,
Now I have to keep touring with you.
sucks for you. So, oh, it's starting to rain a lot now. It's okay, we'll get the shot. So, right behind us, we're standing in front, well, technically we're all around the area of Vincent Square. Now, this is located once again in Westminster, a very nice, posh part of London. And behind me, you'll see the Westminster Fields. So these playing and practice fields are owned by the Westminster School, which is actually located right across the street and all around throughout this area. And what most students who play ball and practice on these fields do not know is that these fields were actually constructed right on top of some of the largest plague pits in the entire city of London. They used to be called Tothill Fields. It's a very, very sad story behind them. So many people buried here, dumped in because of the plague. But this is not the only area that holds dead bodies. In fact, a number of government buildings are situated in this area, and those buildings themselves were actually placed and built on top of these bodies. I don't know why people don't talk about this. I don't know why the government here in London has not made an announcement or, said anything about this being a huge burial site for a lot of people. But it's always very sad when you hear these stories because these are just people that are forgotten by time. And standing here, it's beautiful and the sun is shining, but just like the rain, it's a little bit dismal when you think about the story behind this area and the fact that people are playing games on top of hundreds, thousands of bodies that are way deep in the ground beneath their feet. So we're just here to check that out, tell the story. Want to show who else is all here. Everyone say hi.
Hey.
So yeah, that about wraps up our plague pit exploration here in London. Most of them you can't access. These are two that you can actually go see. They're very spread out throughout the city. Can't do an investigation here, obviously, because there's really nowhere
It's
to
strictly
go.
private.
Yeah, as the sign says, it's strictly private. But next up, we have one of, well, I kind of want to keep the surprise, but we're about to head to one of the last standing buildings that is a testament to the death and destruction that the plague brought upon England. But for now, we're right here, and guess you can cut. Opened in 1863, London's first underground rail system was a step towards amazing technical progress in the city. However, when digging through the dirt in the city while attempting to carve out the tunnel system, there's always the thought of hitting human remains while digging. While it may seem like a popular horror trope, there have been countless recorded incidents in the history of the London Underground where construction workers have unearthed bones whilst constructing a new line for the Underground Railway. There are stories of bones being stacked within the columns and arches of tunnels under construction, while workers and government forces decided what to do with the human remains. And there are multiple recorded incidences where the British government was forced to relocate hundreds of bodies from churchyards and cemeteries because where the graves sat was directly in the route of the planned railway tunnel. While most of the time these remains that are moved are treated with respect, there have been times where these digs have removed and transplanted human remains in a more mechanical fashion, using conveyor belts and pile drivers which dug through the ground, destroying coffins, bones, and burial plates. However, the popular myth surrounding the Underground Railway system is that many times during its construction, workers came across plague pits and destroyed them in the name of innovation, or even planned some of the curves in the railway to avoid them. These theories have never been proven, but the fact that there have been so many times already when the forces behind the underground have had to relocate bodies to construct new tunnel systems raises questions in my mind. In our research and experience, government agencies and construction companies don't exactly like to disclose every single time that they hit human remains. If they report that they have found bones, the construction is halted for a period of time and money and other resources are required to move these remains to another cemetery before they can continue construction. It's easy to imagine a railroad official who's on a tight timetable being told to get this tunnel built now, discovering human remains during a dig and simply turning a blind eye. Regardless of the facts here, the myth of the London Underground being built around and through plague pits persists, and tales of hauntings and sightings of spirits within the underground can be found all across the internet. We obviously couldn't investigate the underground for paranormal activity, but we did the best we could here. We have told the story, brought it to your attention, and now we encourage you to go research the history on your own, so that you can draw your own conclusions. It should be added also that after filming this, we had been out having a couple drinks at a pub and enjoying the night. The underground was going to close in 5 minutes, and I needed these shots because it was our last night in London, so I ran as fast as I could down 3 flights of stairs, ran throughout the entire underground system, got all of these shots, and then had to instantly run up the 3 flights of stairs again. And by the time that I got back up to the top, I was extremely nauseous, and I ended up throwing up on the train back out to the hotel that we were staying at. So we do a lot for this channel, so that's a good memory, but not the most fun memory. The Great Plague was horrible. When one caught the plague, they could expect to swell greatly, break out in a terrible fever, begin to vomit uncontrollably, and writhe in pain until they would die, sometimes only days after catching the disease. In England, cities and villages during this time were in a major state of distress. People were dumping feces and vomit from their windows, and the dead would pile up high in the streets. One way that the English attempted to contain the plague was with pest houses. A pest house was basically a quarantine building where those infected with the bubonic plague were sent to remain in isolation until they either died or became better. However, since so many people were catching this disease, these pest houses filled up quickly and became terrible, sometimes completely unregulated places, where those locked inside were left for dead with no medical care and no hope. Inside of these houses, people were vomiting on themselves, using the restroom in buckets and on the floor, and were dropping dead almost as soon as they entered. Many were forced to enter these pest houses by royal forces and were locked inside the pest house against their own will. In modern England, there are only 6 surviving pest houses. Many have been converted into homes or have decayed beyond repair. While we were in London, I did some research into the matter and was happy to discover that one of the only complete pest houses, a house almost completely untouched since the time of the Great Plague, was only a short 30-minute drive from our hotel. The next morning, after stopping by all the plague pits in London the day before, we headed off to visit one of the world's last remaining pest houses in Oldham, England.
Because of the black and white stripes.
Really?
So you tell.
Why
Any house that's built with those black stripes and all that are from roughly 1600s or earlier.
That's pretty wild, dude. 1600s?
Yeah, it's alright.
But then that means that most of these houses are from the plague times.
Most of these houses are from not necessarily ancient times, but like medieval times. These are all medieval houses.
Wow.
Well, except for that one. That's a modern house.
Yeah. But
That
still.
one, these two are later, but these lot are old. When I say later, I mean they're still a few hundred years old.
But these ones are the old ones.
But those are the really old ones. This is just normal.
Not for us. Oh, the bell.
Yeah.
The bell tolls as we approach the pest house.
Don't forget your stuff.
Oh yeah, I gotta grab this. All these crows and ravens everywhere remind me of like the plague.
I thought maybe.
Doesn't this just remind you of like old medieval times with all the crows and ravens? Mm-hmm. And, like the dark setting. It just reminds me of like every movie I've seen about the plague. But I'm sure there are the plague victims in here. We should find one of their graves. What a scenic graveyard, wow. So, Olivia, you just rubbed the tombstone and determined the age. What was it?
It was 1-5, unknown number 6.
So, this grave, 1500s dated, plague. I think that this pest house was related to the Great Plague, not the Black, obviously, Death, because that would have been 1300s. I don't think any of those are left. But it's just crazy that these graves and everything, they're all so old. I mean, look at this stuff, too. It just looks like a, you know, your average, typical, spooky English cemetery. Mm-hmm. With all the underbrush and everything.
It's the way we like it here, man.
Okay, well, do you guys want to enter the pest house?
Yeah, I really do.
Okay. So we're standing right now outside of one of the last standing pest houses here in England. right now we're standing in the old town of Odiham. This is a very historic village here in England. We had to drive a while out of London to reach this area. It's very small and quaint. We just had a very good French lunch, a little cafe, a pot of tea and everything. Dude, every time, another airplane.
We're trying to film. Quiet down.
Yeah, we drove all the way out here to check out this pest house because these are places that have always intrigued me. We just did the London dungeon tour a few days ago, and in the tour they lock you in a fake pest house, and it kind of gives you an idea of how chaotic these places truly were.
Oh yeah, we're talking groups of people in pitch black conditions, no power, locked into a tiny building like this, right?
Obviously,
And basically
no power.
all of them just dying a horrible death.
Yeah.
All of them fighting with each other. You got, everything from insane, scummy people to just regular old people, just a whole melting pot of just dying people locked in a house.
And sometimes
it.
they were forced in there, obviously. They were
Oh yeah,
thrown in.
you didn't get a choice. If you caught the plague, you're gone.
You were in the pest house. These people were fighting, like you said. People were throwing up. So this is a very heavy location with a very heavy past.
Keep in mind at that time too, just interesting tidbit, toilets weren't really invented. People used to just go either
that's
outside
true.
or they'd chuck it out their window. So in a situation like this, we got people literally dying from a disease in their own feces and vomit with nowhere to go, okay?
Yeah, that sucks.
In the pitch black, might I add. So, brutal. So obviously I say that's one of the reasons we're checking this out on this Haunted UK tour, because of the fact that if anywhere's going to be haunted, why wouldn't it be a place where tons of people died in the worst conditions you could probably imagine other than torture itself? In a way, it is torture, isn't it?
Just a lot of negative energy
Yeah.
from the anguish and torture and obviously death too. It stained the environment. But
That's right.
to wrap this up, there are only a few pest houses still standing. Most of them have been converted into homes or apartments. I know that there's one more about 3 or 4 hours away that's just a ruin. It's not even a complete building. It's just stone and I think a tin roof that they added a couple of years ago. But this is an actual complete pest house. So we've never been inside this building. We stopped in today and we got a good old-fashioned big-ass key to unlock it with. So you guys ready? We're here with Proving Demons.
We're here with your boy Proven Demons, of course. These guys obviously based in the US while we are based in the UK. It's like two worlds freaking colliding, isn't it?
It is.
I'm gonna say keep it rolling.
Two countries colliding.
When we go in. It is two countries colliding, two different styles.
Give me a hug and we'll really collide two countries. There you go.
Alright, let's go open this house up.
I'll show Olivia too. We got Olivia over here. She looks great today. Got the
Yay.
damn flex hair.
True.
Truly awesome hair. He's got no hair, you can see, so I can't really compliment him on that. Oh, that sharp cut. Mine dried all strange. Peyton, obviously, let me get a little shot of you before we go in. How are you feeling about all this? And how does
Good.
this cemetery compare to the ones in the U.S.?
This is like a whole different level of cemetery, honestly. We're dealing with like hundreds of years, you know. We see like a grave from 1870 and we're like, yeah. So
Now this one's from like 15 something.
this is like, we don't even have this style. Like,
No.
Keep in mind
It's
though,
crazy.
that's just the graves. That's not even
Yeah.
talking about the church, which is
Yeah.
probably more closer to 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. But obviously, in older times, as time grows, people keep dying. You're gonna just bury people on top of people and replace the tombstones.
Yep.
So there's a lot of skeletons in this field right now. There's a lot of history just to the land itself.
And probably, honestly, some people that died in the pest house.
Tons of people died
Oh, yeah.
in that pest house.
That's
I
what I'm saying, but I
guarantee
mean, they're probably buried here because this is the cemetery. Like,
That's
there's
right.
the stones, there's the pest house. Well, either way,
you. Open it up.
got the
I want to
key.
see.
let's see, where did I put the key?
It's in your hand.
Oh, it's in my hand still. Let's check the pest house. If you don't subscribe to our channel already, please click that subscribe button and make sure to turn your notifications on. It helps us so much and we can't thank all of you enough for the love and support. Also, if you don't follow me, Colin, on Instagram yet, go hit that follow button and go do the same with Peyton, who's even more poppin' on there than me. Getting more followers gets us one step closer to the big dreams that we have for this channel.
In addition, if you want to support the show, our merch store is live. We have some pretty flame designs if you ask me. Thank you to everyone that has bought a piece in the past, and trust me, we see the love and recognize it. Anyways, enough shameless self-plugging. Enjoy the episode and stay spooky, guys.
Caden, come get a
Yeah.
shot of this. Look at this. This is like the most old ass like horror movie. Dude, I've never done this. Oh, look at, they got history in here.
Oh, awesome. Oh, great. So small.
Okay, is it just me? Does anybody get like an instant odd head change when you came in here?
Mm-hmm.
But it feels really heavy. I'm gonna take my hat off actually.
It smells like
Old.
old. Okay, let's look. Here it is. Built 1625. Purpose was to house sufferers from the plague and other infectious diseases. Plague. Sitting near the church, convenience for either Thanksgiving on recovery or for burial. So they probably are buried here. Then it was used for indigent parishioners. A beer from 1770.
Honeycomb. 200 years old. A well.
Is this the original door to the pest house? Check that shit out. That's Norway. Damn. I mean, dude, there's probably like so many scratch marks and markings from where people went insane and clawed their way out and stuff like that.
That's amazing.
She died in the
What?
Oh, there she is. That's Mrs.
You okay?
Cole right there.
Okay.
She alright? What's the
I
matter?
don't know, she just felt kind of sick.
She felt kind of sick all of a sudden. I'll be honest, I'm getting dizzy just being in here. Like,
It's kind of weird. I've never seen her do that.
alright. Well, hopefully she'll come together and get back in here. Yeah, I think we should try, while we have our time here, to do a bit of investigating.
Oh, yeah.
Just to see what happens. Never know, Mrs. Cole might still be here.
Just want to make a note of that that's not over exaggerated. Peyton just doesn't do that usually. So I'm just gonna go check on her real quick. Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, so really quickly, what did you notice before, you two, when you were reading this?
When I was reading that,
Yeah.
oh, the inkwell that belonged to this Mrs. Cole. Apparently she died in here in 1916. But also more interestingly, I was looking at the chair. That was her chair.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it says keep it with respect because this thing is a couple hundred years old. But yeah, straight up, this chair was Mrs. Cole's.
So there's a lot of not only history in the building, but objects that belong to people, and
Oh, yeah.
we're here, like the door, obviously all the original frames and everything. You can see they're decayed.
Tons
per
of
inkwell.
things. Tons of things that could store energy. Speaking of which, do you have a K2 meter?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it out. Here you go, Peyton.
Because
This one for
I
you.
actually think I'm be interested to try and bring it by the door.
Agreed.
Anything might give off any kind of EMF.
Okay, so to start this off real quick, I'm gonna take this REM pod. We've got Andrew put the little EMF teddy bear on the chair. We'll see if that alerts at any point. And right now we're gonna try contact anybody who may have died from the plague, any disease in this, pest house, even Mrs. Charlotte Cole, who lived here and died here. So there's a lot of different energy here, but it's obviously the middle of the day. Doesn't matter. Paranormal activity can happen at any time. Just want to point that out to viewers online because we don't just do it for the shtick. A lot of times we just go at night because it's when we have free time. But I'm gonna turn on this REM pod right now, zero it out completely. So if this alerts, there's obviously no electricity in here. There's nothing to turn on, I guess. Well, if you take a look, there seems to be a little light. So if there's anything around here, the power cords are going to be up there, and if we get a hit on the meters, we can just.
But let's be
scan.
fair, if electricity was having a solid current running at the moment, these devices would already be going off.
Yeah.
But
There wouldn't be a spider on it making a web right now.
yeah, but clearly they're not affecting the devices. So anything from this point on would be, as far as we could explain it, we wouldn't be able to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've got our K2 meter, EMF meter right here, measures electromagnetic fields.
And like Andrew just said, let's do a little experiment and take this over to the pest house original door. See if it gives a hit on anything. So this is a door that has a lot of history behind it that kept people locked in here sometimes, a lot of times, beyond the time that they wanted to be here and against their will. It was probably a very hellish place, dark, filled with shouting people, violence, sadness.
Appears it's giving off no EMF.
Yeah, nothing here. Just a couple tiny little things that are probably from just my hand shaking. To anybody that died here during the Great Plague, and if you had the disease, the bubonic plague, the Black Death, and you were throwing up blood and experiencing all of these terrible things, we're here to talk to you. We want to hear your story. Is there anybody here in this building with us that cares to make contact?
It's dead quiet in here, isn't it?
I know. We're inviting you out. We're opening the gate, so if there's anybody left in here, any spirits, anything like that, if you can hear our voice, come to the voice and let us tell your story.
Well, there was a small tap right there.
I just heard that.
Maybe you could try and affect a device here. I promise you nothing will hurt you. There it was again. Why is that making a noise?
The first time I've heard that.
I don't want to. In case a squirrel jumps out and lands on my head. Oh, no. There's nothing up there.
There's a phantom lawnmower though,
Yeah.
making its rounds around.
Oh my god, what's that noise?
It's shaking.
Oh wait,
Is he
shut it off. Perfect. Alright, let's get back to it.
Oh, there he's. Oh yeah, he's loading it up.
If there's anybody here whatsoever that wants to try and make contact, wants to give us a sign of your presence, maybe you could try and affect a device here in the room. We have this one, I promise it won't hurt you. Or if you're more comfortable with the bear, and you might take a seat with the bear, I would absolutely. Oh, it's actually just started going off.
Where? On the foot?
On the foot.
Oh, look at it. Peyton, you see it? It's actually alerted on the foot.
No, not that foot. That actually flashed just twice just now. When you pulled away. Could you do that again? Unfortunately, did you catch that on camera?
No.
No, what were you? Okay. Damn it. Okay, so obviously if that was you, and you just touched the bear, I will explain this, by the way. So the more EMF energy it picks up on, the more lights will light off. It'll start off with the other foot, and it'll go to the hands, and then the face, and the whole thing will alarm, right? But small amounts of EMF, there. See it flash? It's picked up a little bit. Is it possible you could do that again? Give us a clear sign of your presence. Do it because I asked you to do it. If you have any connection with the chair, or even if you just have connection with this house, we'd love to know you're here. We come as friends. Well, take your time then. Where's my bag go? Let me get something. How about you ask?
Sure. Yeah. Want me to hold it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, here's the digital recorder. We're going to try catch an EVP if we can. Now, what I just want to say real quickly is that sometimes these things matrix out, so you will hear noises that are not spirit voices. A lot of people use these and they think that every noise is, a ghost, but in reality, 99% of it is just static. But on occasion, like we've done before, yeah. There you go.
It's the battery in the back, yeah.
But sometimes you'll get something strange. So I'm just going to hit record on this. Did you die during the Great Plague? Do you recognize these church bells?
Trust me, I wish those knocks were paranormal so I come in the car. Before we listen to this, just...
That church bell and the raven sound, that's like so Black Plague-ish. Bring out your dead.
That's good timing, though.
Okay, let's listen.
Did you die during the Great Plague? Do you recognize these church
I'm
bells?
assuming you moved a bit when the bells happened. Let me just see if it sounds...
Yeah, that sounded kind of weird to me.
Ooh. I don't think you moved. We can
No, I think... What just happened? Sorry, we paused for a second to check the camera. Olivia, what were you just explaining?
Oh, me and Peyton had the REM pod go off because we both looked at it at the same time.
You know what color it was?
No idea, I just heard it.
It was the little beep. It wasn't. So I think it was the middle one.
Weird.
Okay, so if that was you, was that your voice we heard? If you try and light the REM pod up? It's gone back to quiet. You know, we haven't even finished listening to the rest
I
of
know.
it.
Yeah.
I know. So, well, real quickly, let's point this out. We, on that digital recorder, didn't really think that anything was going to happen. I didn't. But we went through the footage and checked it back. And we did, right when the church bell went off, I kind of went... And either Olivia or Peyton made another similar noise to that. But then right after that, there seems to be some sort of a voice. I don't know what you would want to call it. We're not going to log that as, you know, obviously 100% paranormal activity. But it is weird to think about because if you look at the footage, nobody was moving, no one was making a sound. It's silent on the footage, but it's like a clear something. It almost sounds like Black Plague or like, to me it sounds like black. Like that, but he hears Black Plague.
I hear
Andrew does.
I honestly, I hear Black Plague, which, like I said, living in England, I can. We know
Yeah,
how to tell the difference,
exactly.
and I can see how in America hearing black and plague would sound like black as well. You know, like black or black plague.
Did I just word again? Mm-hmm. REM pod just hit again.
Grandpa just said again. Black plague.
Oh, look at there's some people walking over here.
Oh yeah.
Right.
They're coming up.
Okay, so we had a couple people walk in and check out the pest house. They said that it was funny because the guy who gave us the key told them that it had been months before today when the last person had asked for the key, and today they had 2 people come in of all days when we came. But they loved it. They said they're going to check out our shows. They were really nice. So we're back in here just wrapping up this little mini investigation because we've got more places to be today. Andrew's in the contemplation chair.
And I'm contemplating heavily, might I add.
He actually was contemplating when we walked back in from outside. Talking to himself, actually.
Yeah. Well, no, when you actually sit down and think about it in the quiet, people spent their last days in this house on their own, in pain, agony, probably vomiting every minute. But like when you're actually sitting here thinking like, I'm in the building that took place just 400 years ago. It's heavy. And you know what, there's no surprise to me why it feels so heavy when you walk into a building like this. I mean, energy, believe it or not, sticks around. It really
Definitely.
does. I mean, stone walls, they store it. They store all the energy, and that's what we're feeling.
Even here, blocks from a castle. The old fireplace is what they would use to keep warm when it was probably in the freezing winter months. Okay, Peyton, you want to fire that EMF up, or is it on?
It is on.
Okay, why don't you ask a couple questions? We're all just gonna sit here, try and make contact for a few more minutes. If nothing happens, then we've got another big location to head to today. But for now, we're here in the pest house, just contemplating. Peyton.
If you're here with us right now, you died in this house, you lived a very short time in this house, do you think you could come over and touch this red device? Inside of the door.
Sure. So we're right here in the original pest house door.
Did you come through? Did you? Ooh! Did you come through that door?
Car door.
Mm-hmm.
There's people all around us. You know, I think, especially since we have a drive, it's a good jumping off point.
Yeah.
Good history and a good place to check. But
I just don't feel like it's active.
maybe not right now.
I'm sure at night.
I'm sure at night when the sun goes down, this place might be like one of the creepiest places around. But I think we have a lot of haunted places that we have to hit. And I think we should head to the next one, interview the owner of the cage, and make our way to the murder house tonight.
Cool.
It's gonna get increasingly fucked up.
It's a great stop though for the haunted road trip.
Yeah, good history and stuff.
Really quickly before we head out of here, sorry that light is so bright. So before we head out of here real quick, the Pest House is a beautiful place with a crazy history. It's very sad, but at the end of the day, after investigating for about 45 minutes since we got to stop at our next place, or since we got to head out to our next place now, I don't think that it's as active as we thought initially it might be. We had some just weird little things like the REM pod triggering and voice that we got on the digital recorder that, you know, I'm not going to count as evidence 100%, but it still is weird to just think about stuff like that because we obviously weren't moving and there's no noise in the clip. Have Andrew send that to us, but we're going to head now to one of the most famous haunted locations in the entire country. Not going to reveal where it is yet. Honestly, I am so excited for this because I've been reading about this place for years and I can't believe we actually get to go visit it now when we're here in country. So it's Colin here.
And Peyton.
And from the Pest House here in Odiham. As always, stay spooky.
Wait, do you believe yet, you bastards? I'm still here too. I'm here too, goddammit. I'm kidding, sorry.
No, that's going in the video. No, that's going in the video too. No, let me look at. Wait, turn towards the camera. Say it.
Do you believe yet?
Hello.